Alright guys, so far in this lesson we've taken a look at place value, right? And we've named some new place value places, and we've looked at the relationship of multiplying by 10 and how that can take us from one place value to the next place value by multiplying by 10. And we're going to keep expanding on that and building on our knowledge a little bit. And we're actually going to see not only how we can keep multiplying by 10 to get to place values, different place values, but how we can divide by 10 to work our way back a little bit. So I'm going to put up another place value chart. So if you have your place value chart, you can continue to write on it or put it in your like dry erase kind of folder thing, so you can write on it and erase and do all that good stuff. So I'm going to put mine up here, and we're going to start working a little bit further with this idea of multiplying and dividing by 10 to move around in our place value. Okay, so I have my blank place value chart here. I'm just going to label it up real quick. So we start all the way over here on the right with our ones. Next we have our tens. Then we have our hundreds. Then it's our thousands. Next we have our 10,000s, our 100,000s. And then finally our millions, which is that last place value that we got to. And actually we're kind of ahead of schedule on that as far as 4th grade standard goes, but I think you guys are ready for it, so we're going to keep going with it. So previously in the lesson we were looking at 10 times 1, right? So 10 times 1,000 or 10 times 100 or something like that. So to continue to build on that a little bit, we're going to change things up, and instead of looking at one, we're going to look at multiple numbers, okay? So the first one I want to look at and kind of think about is, what if I had, let's say, 10 times 4 10,000s. Okay, so let's think about that for a second. I have 4 10,000s, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to multiply that by 10. So what's that going to look like as far as my 10,000s go? How many 10,000s am I going to have? Well, if I multiply 10 times 4, that's going to give me 40, so I'm going to have 40 10,000s, okay? That's a lot of 10,000s, but I'm going to have 40 of them, okay? So I'm going to draw that in real quick. Okay, and I would encourage you to kind of follow along with me if you're not already on your place value chart. But now I had that 4 10,000s to start with, and I multiplied it by 10, so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 groups of 4 basically. 4 times 10 will give us 40, so now I have 40 10,000s, okay? But how else can I group that? What else can that number look like? Because saying 40 10,000s, that's kind of like a tongue twister, and it's not the best way that we can explain the value of this number. So again, just like we did in the previous part of this lesson, I'm going to bundle these 40 10,000s into groups of 10, and I'm going to move them over to my next place value, which is the 100,000s place. Right, I'm multiplying by 10 so I can move to the next place value. So let's see, let's group these up here. So I can have one group of 10 here. Can have another group of 10 here. Another group of 10 here. I know my lines are kind of getting crazy and overlapping a little bit, but you get the idea. Another group of 10 here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 10. So if I were to move these over to the 100,000s, I would have 400,000s. So 40 10,000s is the same as 400,000, or 10 times 4 10,000s is equal to 40 10,000s, which is equal to 400,000. Again, I apologize for kind of running out of room there, but you get the idea. So 10 times 4 10,000s is equal to 40 10,000s, which is equal to 400,000s, which is what we're showing over here, okay? So I just grouped them by 10s and moved them over. Easy enough. All right, let's take a look at another example real quick. Same sort of thing. We're going to follow the same sort of process, but what if I had 300,000s? Okay, so I'm going to write this one a little bit differently so we can start to see this. 10 times 300,000. Okay, so I have my number of 300,000. We're going to do 10 times that. So if I had 300,000s, I would write that here. 1, 2, 3. And if I was going to do 10 times that, I would have to write that 300,000s. I'd have to do it 10 times, right? So 1, 2, 3. So that's So that's one group of 3, so there's 2. Multiplying it by 10, that's going to get us to 30, basically. Okay, so again, I had 10 times 300,000. I had my 300,000s here. I multiplied it by 10, so that gave me 30 hundred-thousands. Saying 30 hundred-thousands is not the best way to say that. So again, I'm going to group these by tens and then move them into my millions to figure out how many millions I'm going to have. So if I grouped these, I would have, let's see, one group of 10 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I would have another group of 10 here in the middle. Again, sorry for my lines kind of going wonky there. And then another group of 10 over here. So those 30 hundred-thousands would group into 3 millions. 1, 2, 3. So 10 times 300,000 is the same as 3 million. Okay, 10 times 300,000 is the same as 3 million. Easy enough, right? So we're seeing if we move from 10 times something, we're moving to the left, okay? We're moving to a bigger place value. So now let's take a look at if we're moving to the right, if we're dividing by 10, what's that going to look like? All right, so we've already seen that we can multiply by 10 to move left on the place value chart, right? To get to kind of regroup or rebundle our numbers into greater values on the place value chart. But now what we're going to take a look at is going the opposite way, dividing by 10 to move to the right on the place value chart in bundling and grouping our numbers in different ways. So I'm going to start by writing up an example, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit. So let's start with if I had 2,000 and I was going to divide that by 10. Okay, so I'm not multiplying by 10 this time. This time I'm dividing by 10. So the first thing I want to do is I want to represent that 2,000 on my place value chart. Okay, so if I had 2,000 on the place value chart, where I'd have 1, 2 right here. Okay, and that's easy enough. We can represent it that way. But we're going to be dividing by 10, which means we're going to be moving to the right on the place value chart. So to the right on the place value chart is our hundreds. Okay, so we know that our thousands are going to change into hundreds, because we're dividing by 10. We're moving one step. So knowing that, what's another way that we can represent thousands using hundreds? If we changed each of those thousands out for a smaller unit, being the hundreds, what would it look like? How could we draw that on our place value chart? Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to change my color here so we can see a difference, but I'm going to draw out some hundreds that are going to be equal to my thousands. Okay, so if I start here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so what I drew here was 20 hundreds, because if we were to group these into tens, right, I'd have 10, 10, I'd have two groups of 10, which would be the same as 2,000s, right, what we were looking at before. So 20 hundreds is the same as 2,000, so the same value. So if I'm working my way backwards, if I'm working my way right on that place value chart, I can show the value of these two numbers, my 2,000s that I have here and my 20 hundreds, they're the same value, okay? So I can kind of keep that in mind as I move to the next step. Because what we're doing is we're taking those 2,000s and we're dividing them by 10. So I can't really divide this 2 by 10, but I can divide this 20 by 10. So if I do that, and I make groups here, dividing by 10, I'm going to have one group of 10, and I'm going to have two groups of 10. So that means that 2,000 divided by 10 is equal to 2 hundreds. Okay? Because I broke those thousands into smaller units into my hundreds, and then I divided it by 10. So the 2,000s divided by 10 will give me 2 hundreds. These are representing each group here. Okay? And this concept can be a little bit trickier to visualize, so let's take a look at one more example together, okay? What if I had 300,000, and I wanted to divide that by 10, okay? Similar to what we did before, we're dividing by 10, so we're moving right on the place value chart, but this time I have 300,000. So I'm going to start by drawing my 300,000s right here. So I have 300,000s, but I can't really divide that by 10, right? So I have to think of that as my next place value down. I got to make it into a smaller group, and then I could divide that by 10. So 300,000s is going to be the same as 30 10,000s. Okay, so I'm going to draw that in. Okay, so I have my 300,000s, which I unbundled basically, made them into smaller units and made it into 30 10,000s. So now I can divide that by 10. So instead of drawing circles around them this time, I'm just going to highlight them. So here is one group of 10, two groups of 10, three groups of 10. So if I were to take that 300,000s and divide them into 10, it would give me 3 10,000s, okay? Not 100,000s anymore, because I divided it, I made it into smaller units, and then I divided those smaller units up, so I would get 3 10,000s. Okay, so far we've seen that if we multiply by 10, our place value is going to get bigger, right? We're going to go to the left, it's going to increase. If we divide by 10, our place value is going to get smaller. So if we're multiplying by 10, we're going to have to bundle numbers together to get to that next bigger place value. If we're dividing by 10, we're going to have to kind of unbundle those numbers and move them down a place value, and then we can divide by 10 that way. So we can go back and forth on this place value chart by multiplying or dividing by 10. We've only been doing that with one digit at a time. So let's take a look at a quick example of using two digits, and then you guys are going to practice a little bit on your own with this skill.